There are pillars of colonization that I think are very important to name. It became clear to me throughout this decolonization process that the end goal of the Chitauri and the humans that are being used by them is total and complete colonization or annihilation of all human beings. That is the peak of their work. At the bottom of this foundation, you have parenthood and education. These are the first two places for most people where they learn their place in this system. Both of these settings are, in my opinion, informed by organized religion. Specifically, the religion that says there's some big man in the sky who is looking down on you to judge everything that you do, and there's very little good, if any good, that you can do for him to see you otherwise. This is the organized religion that has been used as a weapon against the masses to push white and Arab supremacy, delusion, capitalism, and patriarchy. And the gag is you don't see it coming. You wake up one day here on planet Earth learning how to walk and talk, and all of a sudden it's like everything about your life was preconceived, like it was a part of someone else's plan. Especially as a Black woman growing up in the Americas, the first story that you learn is about how Eve did something with a snake, and now all of humanity is under siege because of what she did. So as I spoke about in a previous video, I had to throw up all of that dogma and religion that was forced down my throat as a child and young adult, and I started to develop a relationship with my creator and ancestors. Although sometimes I still use the Bible as a sort of manual for life, I don't see it as the end-all be-all anymore like I used to. Especially like when you get to travel, you get to meet other people who are in different religious systems that they've been conditioned into, and you start to see the similarities. Like, traveling showed me that the good stuff about my creator transcends any man-made system. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me go step by step. If you're new here, karibu, a big Swahili welcome to you. My name is Yahaira, and this channel is about building a regenerative way of living. I share my journey as an educator, a filmmaker, a birth worker, and future homesteader building what I call kin and soil. So I'm gonna try to stay chronological during this yap session, but I may jump to other parts of my story in and out, so just bear with me. I remember around 7 or 8 years old, one day I was playing outside and seeing those lines in the clouds, and ever since then, I was always wanting to question everything. I became that question everything type of person. I remember these lines in the sky as clouds not like sitting with me well then, and now I look at the news as an older person finally coming out with the topics of solar geoengineering and cloud seeding technology as if it's breaking news. And it's not, to be honest. Like, the government, the American government, has had this technology since way before I was born, like late 40s, early 50s. So needless to say, my decolonization process started early in life, and for that I'm grateful. Throughout my upbringing, my parents wanted me to only speak English at home. At the time, I felt like they were robbing me of something because, honestly, they would speak Spanish to each other, and it was kind of like this attitude, like, I guess they didn't want children and grown folks' business, so I get it. But the Spanglish that I know today, I learned from school. I learned from my peers. And looking back, this actually probably helped me root more into African American culture. And to be honest, growing up in the South, that was very easy for me to navigate. Also, I grew up close to New Orleans, and I think that people in this area were accustomed to folks having like different sounding names and growing up in households that had different types of food. I consider New Orleans to be like the North Caribbean, to be honest. So we're not that far away from each other. So even though my parents wanted me to speak primarily English, through my father's strong identity in his Panamanian culture, there was a lot of reggae music I was exposed to growing up. And for anyone that knows that type of music, they know that there's a lot of revolutionary mindsets embedded within the music. We were also listening to Haitian compa, like, Tabu Combo. And then my dad would sometimes bust out the Grover Washington or the Bill Withers. So it was always very clear to me that to be Black or to be African was to be multilingual, even though they didn't want me speaking Spanish. So whatever. The irony. Through my father's culture, I was able to learn very early on in life that there was this connection that all Black people had with Africa, and particularly for Panama, where my father's family is from, to Central Africa, which is modern-day Congo, Angola, Mozambique, and Gabon. So even though I was going through this American assimilation campaign in my household, my father was the one who was really pushing me to be more of a global citizen. He was also the one to give me this like sci-fi Afrofuturist lens as well. I remember watching Twilight Zone with him all the time, and after every show we would have a discussion about the lesson of the show. And I remember his favorite movie was Akira Kurosawa's Dreams. So that gave me a picture into Japanese culture, which I thought was really cool at the time. And I think that movie also gave me the foundations of my environmental justice mindset. I think that's where it started to form for me. So I believe that those conversations I would have with my father surrounding the art that he would share with me also gave me these other touch points away from the status quo that like helped to inform my decolonization process as I got older and developed the language. In 1999 was when the Columbine High School shooting happened. I was 9 years old, and I think I'm going to make a separate video specifically about school shootings. But all I'll say right now is that every time a school shooting happened, it affected me deeply. And even though it affected me deeply, I still chose to suit up and get in the classroom myself as an adult. I think what people need to understand is that just because you don't grow up in the hood in America doesn't mean that you don't deal with gun violence. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal to me. I think what hurts the most, not that anybody should be dealing with gun violence, but I think what hurts the most is that the general population of America, particularly, in my opinion, Black America, cares more about like whatever a celebrity is doing as opposed to what's going on with our children. And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it, like American public schools are run more like concentration camps than actual therapeutic environments, in my opinion. But America's marketing team is A1, we're supposed to be a first world country, whatever that means. Like, America doesn't care about children. And you see that in school pedagogy, you see that in these PDF files coming out, and you see that in the way in which school shootings are handled, like just to name a few things. and since 1999, since I was 9 years old, I was living under the terror of a potential of school shootings, like having to do the drills, wondering if today will be the day. And, just seeing a completely apathetic attitude within the general American population, like that does something to you. And to be honest, every year it seems to get worse. There's more school shootings, more deaths, more thoughts and prayers, where there needs to be like a complete renovation of American society. That taught me at an early age to be hypervigilant, because not only was I in school, but my mother was working in schools, and sometimes we were not in the same school. So in a way, kind of though, like looking back, this hypervigilance helped me to be more confident in decolonizing my mind, because I was able to start seeing stronger patterns in this status quo nonsense that was all around me, pervasive growing up. So from there, in 2001, the Twin Towers and the Pentagon was hit by what they call a terrorist attack. I can't say I fully understand what was happening at that time, because I was only 10 or 11. But I just remember thinking that America was the bully and not whoever they said was terrorizing. Just before that, the year before that, my family and I, we had went up to New York to spend what my mom thought would be the last time before the Y2K apocalypse or whatever. So I mean, even that experience shaped me because it made me realize that time doesn't always move as we anticipate. What we thought would be the world ending at midnight on January 1st, 2000 was actually an attack a year later on the ideas of American hegemony. You know, so it's like those things start kind of coming together in time. So fast forward to 2007, this was the first time I was able to vote. I was 17 going on 18 years old, and it was the first time that I not only saw someone who looked like me in the highest seat of the land, but he was and still is married to a Black woman with 2 gorgeous Black daughters. So you know who I voted for, okay? I'm not saying that I put my hand to the fire for any president in any country, but being 17 years old and my 17-year-old brain, first time in uni, like that was a big deal for me. And this was also the same year as the Virginia Tech shooter. So like these school shootings keep coming back up because like it always seemed to be a threat in like the background for me, you know? So at some point, all of these school shootings I had known at that time were in primary and secondary school. And then I'm finally graduating high school thinking, surely this will not be an issue in university school. And sure enough, it was. My first year in undergrad, the Virginia Tech shooting happened, you know? So that theme keeps coming up. In 2009, I started taking African American studies courses, and I had the distinct honor of learning under the likes of Dr. Kenitra Brooks and Professor Solis, who were both 2 educators who were committed and still committed to speaking truth to power in their classrooms. In Dr. Brooks's class, I was learning more about speculative horror and Afrofuturism. And in Professor Solis's class, I was learning specifically about the African history of Mexico and Texas. Something that I loved learning in his class was that General Santa Anna was actually a Black man. He was an Afro-Mexican man. And, you know, this was the first time in my life, to be honest, that I was learning stories about resilience and the struggle of the global majority. And it was in Dr. Brooks's class where I first learned that our enslaved ancestors that were trying to escape were labeled as being mentally ill. Like, imagine wanting freedom and like treated like that was something, like there was something wrong with you. You know, white folks called it drapetomania at the time. And this showed me how far systems will go to justify their oppression, you know? And it really shook me because this was the first time that I started to connect the dots between freedom and the mental process that it takes, you know? Like, obviously, I know that we were not mentally ill, but in order to get free and escape, that person had to be mentally aware of their condition as a prisoner of war. You know, so even though I wasn't living in the same conditions as my ancestors, I knew something had to give in my life that was this life that was preconceived for me, because this wasn't it. So it was also around this time that I started going natural. You know, I started transitioning from relaxers. I was watching OG vloggers like Natural 85, and I was also taking a research class at the time, and I was able to choose the topic that I did my paper on. So I chose Chris Rock's documentary Good Hair. So just for context, I never chose to relax my hair. It was pre-planned before I could even go to school. My mom started relaxing my hair around 3 or 4 years old. And the earliest memory that I can recall was when I was 5 years old, and my hair was already relaxed in that memory. So pretty much my entire life up to that point, I only knew straight and lifeless hair. Many people in my family looked down on my decision, but it's all good because now they ask me how I did it. So it all worked out in the end, you know? So this is happening all at the same time. I'm learning real African history. I'm accepting my features as Jah made them. And through this process, something else started brewing in my life. I was a part of a campus ministry called Campus Crusade for Christ, which is now called Crew. And side note, but like that was real mentacide for me. like a real mental illness to be a part of an organization that had the word crusade in it. But, you know, you live and you learn. So for anyone who has joined these student ministries, they can attest that these groups are somewhat cultish. They really lean into hierarchy and Christian fundamentalism, which is like this puritanical European version of evangelism. So during my years with the organization, I started to come under the wing of the campus pastor and his family. They kind of sort of like adopted me. They had 5 children, but they were all boys. So everybody in the church would always say I was like the daughter that they never had. So as I'm growing up in my faith, fast forward to senior year of undergrad, I start working for the pastor's tech company. And at that point, I really should have listened to my intuition, which was like screaming at me, girl, you're spending all your time with these people. Like, your friends are the people in the church. You go to school with the people in the church, which is also affiliated with the student ministry. And now you work with the same people. So I could have found another outlet, but because I was new to adulthood, I didn't consciously know yet that something was wrong with that whole setup for me. But, you know, in this time, I'm learning about how God is a jealous God, and my good deeds are like dirty period pads to him. And, you know, how the man is the head and me as the woman, I'm beneath him. And, you know, all of this same messaging over and over again. But my saving grace was really another woman who was working for the pastor. Her and I had went on a trip to Memphis to go and meet some other pastors that the company that we were working with was looking to bring on as clients for website design. And it was on that trip, this was before, like, let me just say, this was before Canva and all of these things. Like, people were still coding websites at the time. So it was on that trip that she came clean to me that she had been having an affair with the pastor. So at this point, like, I'm grown in age, but I'm still a baby mentally. So like, I was shocked. And I asked her for how long this had been going on. And she said for a few years. But the way she was saying she was speaking as if he had taken advantage of her, not physically, but more so mentally, which we do know happens often, you know. These pastors roll around our communities like celebrities, you know, like a Teflon Don. Essentially, like, they can do whatever they want with impunity because God will forgive them. And to be honest, the people that are lost under their tutelage will forgive them too, because those people don't have a relationship with Jah. They have a relationship with the pastor. So anyway, she started going into detail about how he manipulated her through scripture, and almost like he was grooming her. And I'll never forget what she said to me. Like, she said that, you know, in the office, she had been hearing some of the things that he was saying to me, and that she wanted to let me know that that's how it started for her. So I was like, oh no, baby, we got to get out of here. We got to go. So the day after we came back from Memphis, I had quit my job working there, and I left that church, the ministry, all of that without looking back. That experience with Crew always stuck with me because it was the first time that I consciously saw the cracks in religion. Well, I can't even say the first time, to be honest, because growing up, I always thought that it was weird. I grew up Catholic. I always thought it was weird that I had to like go and confess my sins to this man who was wearing this tunic in the shadows, like in the corner. Like, why can't we have a normal conversation? You know, why do I have to go into this box and like, you tell me if God has forgiven me or not? You know, that never sat right with me, never sat right with me. But, you know, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. People have their thing. That's what I needed at the time. You know, that road needed to bring me here. And that's all I'll say about the church at this point. Fast forward to 2012, Trayvon Martin was murdered down in Florida. And all of that is not new to American history. You know, growing up, I would hear about folks like Rodney King or James Byrd Jr. out here in Texas, in Jasper, Texas. And, you know, so many of those stories that the news was focusing on that time were also like other children. So you have Tamir Rice in Cleveland, Mike Brown, 2014, Ferguson, Missouri. Then adults like Sandra Bland here in Texas, 2015. Philando Castile, 2016. Breonna Taylor, 2020. George Floyd, 2020. Freddie Gray, Eric Gardner. The list goes on and on and on. And, you know, for those of y'all that are continental born African families who may have like cultural amnesia, or, you know, you want to put this barrier between you and African American people when you get here, let's not forget about Amadou Diallo, who was a university student from Guinea. He was 23 years old. So like all of those things were happening. They happened. They continue to happen. But, you know, the news really, in my opinion, from 99 to 2023, it was like they were pushing these stories almost like public lynchings, you know. And every time I saw one of these stories, I was just like, you know what, this will not be my portion. This will never be the story of my children, you know. And I still stand behind that. Like, all of these murders made me angry, and it also made me not want to leave my house. Like, out of fear, you know, that hiding, that trying to like be smaller. But I did speak about it in a previous video. That time made me strong. It made me very strong. And it also gave me time to plan my life moving forward, you know. Luckily, I didn't know it at the time, but I would be gifted with some powerful tools to help solidify my mind into the final stages of my decolonization process. So I know I'm going real fast. This next part is going to go even faster. So just rock with me. In 2017, the movie Get Out by Jordan Peele debuted. And if you haven't seen it, like, it is vital that you watch it. It was confirmed to me through that movie what I had been hypothesizing all my life pretty much, which was that there is a concerted effort by certain entities to annihilate Black people off planet Earth. Literally. Like, then the year after that, it was 2018, Black Panther movie was debuted. And we all know the influence that that movie had on the world, okay? And for me, it gave me some thoughts on what a Sankofa journey may look like, and, you know, how it may feel like, and what it, you know, all of the textures of it. So then I think it was 2019, the movie Us came out by Jordan Peele also again, and that gave me solidification on my class consciousness. And then summer of 2019, just a few months after that, I go to experience living in sub-Saharan Africa. Then a few months after that, we all know 2020, the pandemic happens, okay? And a few months in the summer after that, in the chaos of the planning, I decide to move to Tanzania. In 2021, Dr. Magufuli passes away, which I talk about his impact in my film, which is linked down below. 2022, Captain Ibrahim Traore comes into power in Burkina Faso. And in April 2023, at the age of 32, I made my director's debut with my first feature-length film, Teacher Don't Teach Me Nonsense. And I'll talk about my entire process on like filming that in another video, but looking back, I totally should have started with a short film because it was a lot. But it was the baptism by fire that I needed. So yeah, 2017 through 2024, I started living my life completely out of this status quo. And, you know, all of these touch points brought me to where I am today. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm still learning, but I'm moving into application, which leads me to the last stage of decolonization. Now, I take all of the concepts and principles and lessons and values that I've learned over the years and actually apply them. So, you know, to me, it's beautiful to know like what Sankofa means or Ubuntu or these Sawubona principles. But after learning comes application. After theory comes application. You know, it's not enough to just know these things. We need to be embodying these things. Like, I wish I could jump through the screen and tell you how important it is, but I can't. You're just going to continue watching me on this Black Mirror, but I need you to understand, maybe someday this will be like 6D, whatever, but I know the mentacide that has been inflicted on our people and that is still present in our communities. I recognize that it's something that we're working on, but I need y'all to understand there is no one holding us back anymore. You know, it's only people standing in their own way. So I think the biggest decolonization moment for me was when I shifted from that thinking movement to this embodiment. Dr. Jewel Pookrum talks about this in her very famous lesson on the 7 circuits of the brain, which I'll also link below. But basically she says the 3rd circuit of the brain is all about intellect. You know, she likens it to people who have to see it to believe it, or they have to read a scholarly article in order to accept the information as fact, you know. And I laugh every time I listen to it because in her lesson, she calls the 3rd circuit bird brain mentality. And, you know, I really love this talk because she basically goes into detail about what you can do to move up into the 7th circuit, which is, for context, the 7th circuit is being able to break universal laws. And for me, that's the peak of decolonization right there. Like, what good is our education if we can't heal the sick or bring people back from the dead, you know? And that was actually one of the first questions I started to have in the beginning of my, you know, uncoupling from religion process. Like, I was reading John 14:12, where Jesus talks about greater works than these you shall do. And I kept coming back to that verse. Like, if Jesus healed the blind and made the lame man walk, like, why can't I? And why is my Sunday school not teaching me how to do this? You know, so for many years that I spent in school, hitting the books over and over again, in Sunday school, hitting the books over and over again, thinking that education was the pinnacle of what my brain, you know, could master. And deep down inside, I knew that I wanted more than like knowledge, you know, I wanted more than wisdom. So I'm thankful that I'm no longer all the way there. And I'm thankful that I moved forward into another circuit. And if you're watching this, I hope that you can get there too, because like, you can read all the books and know all the things, but what good is it if we're not getting free? I'm not just stopping at racial freedom or a border-free planet. Like, I'm talking about freedom from all of the universal laws. That's the complete and total decolonization process to me. So that is enough of my soliloquy for today. If this resonated with you, please put your thoughts below and consider subscribing, because in the next video, I'm going to talk more about moving to the beat of your own drum. So as always, go and touch some grass with your people, sending love to all benevolent beings. Amani na upendo.